This is the ANCEL Engine Superstarter Battery Booster. It's designed to take over the largest job that burdens your vehicle's battery, and that's starting the engine. And consequently, it's a big factor into what can wear out your current battery. And this product is supposed to solve that problem. So it's brand new to the market. I haven't quite seen anything like it. So we are going to learn everything we can about it. We're going to hook it up, install it, test it out, and see how it works. Let's go. This is everything that comes in the package. Comes in this cardboard box right here. This is the BS200. That's the model number. You also see it right here. From what I understand, there might be other versions coming out, but this is the only one available right now, and we'll get into some of the specs momentarily. You have your owner's manual. This one's good for 700 amps of output. You have some temporary battery clamps. That's so if you wanted to connect these to a battery in a temporary fashion, you could use these clamps to secure that. And then you have some zip ties, because the intent is to leave this in the vehicle so it's there taking care of business at all times and you don't really have to think about it. Imagine adding a device like this into your vehicle, knowing that it's going to be ready for a cold or hard to start situation before you are. But get this, it's not a lithium-ion battery like you'd find in a booster pack. In fact, it doesn't even have a battery in it. It's a supercapacitor designed to work in temperatures as low as -40 Celsius or Fahrenheit, all the way up to 80 degrees Celsius or 176 degrees Fahrenheit. And because it's a supercapacitor, you don't have the risk of swelling, overheating, or risk of fire. You just get an always ready companion to do the toughest job that your battery would normally have to do, which is starting your engine. I mentioned that this permanently installs in your vehicle. That's because once the vehicle started, your charging system will recharge the supercapacitor for its next use. According to the specifications, it has over 100,000 cycles of lifespan. That means you could start your car over a dozen times a day, every day, for almost 25 years before this would wear out. So based on that math, I think it has you covered. The claim is since the ANCEL BS200 is doing all the heavy lifting, your regular battery by default gets a new lease on life and should last a lot longer now that it's avoiding the strain of starting your engine. So now you know how it should work in theory. Let's take a closer look at actually how we use it. So the first thing you need to do, because when they ship this, it is not charged, is you need to give it an initial charge with a USB-C cable. And while it's connected with a USB-C cable, we also want to access the Bluetooth features so we can start to pair our phone with it so we have access to monitoring it at all times. So here you'll see we have our Bluetooth not connected yet because it's blinking. Our green light is blinking, meaning that it's starting to charge. And it's not sitting low right now, but it might when you first get it because I've already had this plugged in earlier today, just getting ready to make this video. While it's doing that, you'll want to download the app. I already have it connected here, but on the side here, I'll show you what it looks like when you go to download it from the App Store. And then once you have it connected, you will be able to see a lot of different data from the BS200. We're able to see the current state of charge. It knows that we're not connected to the battery in the vehicle yet. And then it tells us different information, including voltage, temperature, and more. We only have limited information because it's not connected to the vehicle. So that's the next thing we're going to do, is install this in my daughter's very practical Subaru. So why this vehicle and why not something like my car, maybe my truck outside, or even the classic truck over there? It's because the BS200 is designed for smaller displacement engines, so 3 liters or smaller, and this is in that category. But I also have an ulterior motive. I'm not convinced the battery health in this car is top notch. So let's do a little test and see what we're dealing with. So we are going to do a cold cranking amps test. And this battery is rated for 800 cold cranking amps and 640 cranking amps. But we want to know the cold cranking amps because, one, I live in Canada. We do get the -40 weather sometimes, more consistently, maybe -20, -25 Celsius. But we're going to do a cold cranking amp test on this battery and see how it does. Now I've already fully charged the battery, and you'll see that when I hook up the tester, it should say state of charge is close to 100%, if not 100%. This was just completed an hour or so ago. We'll connect our tester here and we'll see what we're dealing with. 12.69 volts, should be 12.8. 12 volt, we'll do a battery test, which will allow us to do the cold cranking amp test as well. We'll pick the appropriate battery and we'll pick the appropriate test. So I already have 800 in here. Let's go. So state of charge, 92%, and state of health, only 49%. Not great. The problem I see here is the cold cranking amps coming out of this battery are only 566, not the 800 that the battery is rated for. So this might be a good test case for this product, partly because this battery is probably on its last few months of life. Difficult to say. Okay, we are fully charged. Going to unplug this, make sure this is sealed here, because it does look like the housing is intended to be weatherproof. Okay, now we just have to decide where to mount it. I'm thinking we could mount it just down here. And then I can use cable ties to strap it to this bar right here. And it's not touching the engine block or anything like that. There's a gap down here. And this hose is just, you know, pushing against it, which shouldn't be any harm. I could look at putting it on there with some adhesive tape. Could just even strap it to the handle here on the battery. But I think this will be good enough for our purposes. Okay, now we should be able to connect this. When you're using a wrench on the positive terminal, make sure you're not grounding it to anything. You'll get a nice little shock and a reminder not to do that. All right, she's all hooked up. And I want to do two tests. We're going to do one in the garage here just to see what it's like first time cranking it up. You saw the state of charge on the battery, so the app should tell us some details about how this all goes. And then we're going to park the vehicle outside, wait a few days because we have some colder weather coming, and then we'll see what it does in the cold weather. Got a nice little holder here. Okay, since I've installed it and went and ate some dinner, we are now down to 94%. Our battery still says it's okay, and we're at 19 degrees Celsius, so comfortable in the garage. Now we are going to start the vehicle and see what happens. Not the strongest starting, but it started. And it discharged 446 amps. Let's go to the report here. So it discharged 446 amps, 73% discharge ratio, and a cranking voltage of 11.4. Going back to the main screen here, you can see the battery's charging, and the ANCEL BS200 is also charging up off of the alternator. So it seems to work. Let's try one more time to see what happens. So it discharged again. This time 299 amps. So it's obviously adding more amperage to substitute for the battery. Now we do have access to more data. We have a graph at the bottom here that shows our battery voltage and the starter current. So you can kind of see where the current is being utilized during the starting process. Here we also have the ability to force start on your own without having somebody there jumping the battery. You can do it from inside the comfort of the cab of the vehicle. Then we have access to our history. We can add more than one device. I've labeled this one Subaru. And then we have some more settings just to make it more of a customizable experience. Daily power notification, abnormal cranking notifications, power alarm optional with 2 parameters. Right now it's at 60% and 80% thresholds. We can change our temperature units. We can export our data. Exporting the data would be in an Office compatible spreadsheet. And then we can change our language, do a firmware update, which I've already done. And then we can also just see what version of the app we have. It's all well and good in the garage, but what we need to do is wait till it gets colder, do this outside in real world conditions. All right, so a few days later, it's actually quite cold and windy. It's well below zero, and I think that this might be the perfect test because we know that the battery in this car doesn't really hold a state of charge that well. And as I get closer to the vehicle and look at the Bluetooth, it says it's at 36%. So this is a faulty or failing battery, and our booster, our BS200, is at 87%. So we're gonna see if this will substitute for that low charge and get us started. My daughter was in it last, I think. Okay, here we go. Oh, it's so cold I didn't want to keep running. Let's try again. But look, it used 556 amps coming out of the additional support. So it does work. It will start the vehicle. Just give it a little gas, keep it going. But there we go. There's proof it works. So despite a successful test, you still want to make sure that you have a healthy battery. But this did what it was designed to do, and that was to take the heavy lifting away from whatever battery that you have, provided that it's a smaller displacement engine, because remember, this is the BS200. It is made for 3-liter or smaller displacement engines. It's not made for a big V8 with 6.2 liters of displacement. There might be a product that they're developing to support larger engines, but that remains to be seen at this time. If they come up with something like that, I will certainly test that out and share the results with you. However, if this is something that you feel would benefit you or somebody in your family, I feel that it's reasonably priced. I'll leave all the details in the video description below, as well as a coupon code to save you a little bit of money. So if you found this video valuable and educational, hit that like button. Please consider subscribing, and we'll talk to you next time.